Have you ever stopped to think about how insanely interconnected our world is? How one single event happening thousands of miles away can send these massive shockwaves right into your wallet, the technology you use, even the stability of the entire globe? Well, we're going to break down one single chaotic day, March 9th, 2026, to see exactly how a war on the other side of the planet managed to spark a chain reaction of crises that touched, well, pretty much everything.
So picture this. It's Monday, March 9th. For most of us, it's just the start of another work week. But behind the scenes, this incredibly complex web of events was already in motion, and it was threatening to tear a very fragile global order apart. It was a day that just pulled back the curtain on all the hidden wiring of our modern world.
The big story, the one dominating every headline, was a war in the Persian Gulf that was kicking off a massive energy crisis. But, and here's where it gets wild, how on earth does that connect to a legal fight with an AI company out in California? Or to this weird, shady corner of the internet where people were literally placing bets on nuclear war? That's the puzzle we're putting together in this explainer. To really get what happened that day, we have to start at this source, the rapidly escalating war between the US, Israel, and Iran. This was never just a regional fight. It was the epicenter of a global earthquake. Now, the public line from the administration, it was clear and it was tough. In a post online, President Trump pretty much framed the economic pain as a necessary evil, saying that a jump in oil prices was a very small price to pay. This wasn't just some casual comment. It made it crystal clear just how high the stakes were, right from the very top. And this whole conflict had blown up with unbelievable speed. It all kicked off on February 28th with airstrikes that killed Iran's supreme leader. Iran hits back almost immediately, striking an airbase in Saudi Arabia. By March 8th, US and Israeli forces are taking out fuel sites. And that brings us to this day, March 9th, where Iran signals they are not backing down one bit, naming the late leader's son as the new successor. And look, beyond all the geopolitical moves and the economic numbers, there was a very real, very tragic human cost. By March 9th, 7 American service members had been killed in action. Each one of these names, Benjamin Pennington, Declan Cody, Cody Hork, Nicole Amore, Noah Tegens, Jeffrey O'Brien, and Robert Marzan, they represent a devastating loss. It's a powerful reminder of the real people, the real families behind the headlines. So, the war's first major ripple effect, it was immediate, and it was massive. It essentially put a chokehold on the world's energy supply, sending a huge jolt of panic straight through the global economy. 20%. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the percentage of the entire world's daily oil supply that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. It's like a global energy artery, and now it was effectively closed for business. To put that into perspective, a 20% disruption makes every other major energy crisis in modern history look small. But the most important, the most terrifying detail is in that last column. See, in past crises, there was always some spare production capacity somewhere to help soften the blow. This time, zero. The countries that had that spare capacity were the ones that were now cut off. The safety net was gone. And the results? Exactly what you'd expect. Oil prices went through the roof. Brent crude, which is the big global benchmark, shot up from around $80 a barrel right before the war started to a high of almost $120 on March 9th. This wasn't just some number on a screen. This was a price shock that was going to be felt at every gas pump and in every household budget all around the world. An energy crisis this big doesn't stay in its lane. The second ripples slammed right into global financial markets, where, let me tell you, fear was the only thing anyone was trading that day. The reaction from the financial world was fast, and it was brutal. Stocks were dropping all across Europe and the US as investors basically started prepping for a global recession. And in a classic sign of just how nervous everyone was, money started pouring into the US dollar, which is seen as the last safe place to hide in a storm. This was a global vote of no confidence in the economy's stability. Okay, so here's where the story gets really interesting. Away from the oil fields and the stock markets, a completely different kind of fight was heating up, one that was pitting Silicon Valley against the Pentagon. The company right in the middle of all this was Anthropic, a major player in the AI world. Their really powerful AI models, called Claude, were being used in US government systems. But on this day, that relationship just completely fell apart, with Anthropic suing the government for blacklisting them as a supply chain risk. I mean, that's a move you usually save for a foreign enemy, not a US tech company. So, what was the big fight about? Well, it really came down to one thing: control. The Pentagon wanted complete, unrestricted access to Anthropic's AI for any lawful use in the war. But Anthropic was pushing back hard, saying, "Whoa, hold on, we need to build in some ethical rules here to stop our tech from being used for stuff like fully autonomous killer drones or mass surveillance." It was a classic showdown: control versus caution. The administration's response was, not subtle. President Trump went online and declared that he would decide the country's fate, not some out-of-control AI company. So yeah, this was way more than a contract issue. It was a high-stakes battle over who really gets to control the future of artificial intelligence in war. And while all this global drama was unfolding, the pressure was also cranking up back home. This war wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was like pouring gasoline on a bunch of other fires that were already burning, stretching the country's focus pretty thin. I mean, the headlines from just that one day show a nation already dealing with a lot. You've got a massive antitrust settlement with Ticketmaster, a really controversial resignation at the FDA, a major acquisition by OpenAI, and a political scandal popping up around the president's investments. Every single one of these things just added to this feeling of instability. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most unsettling ripple from this day of chaos. This is an unseen layer where the lines between information, speculation, and just basic morality got terrifyingly blurry. Just think about this for a second. What if you could just log onto a website and place a real money bet on whether a military strike was about to happen, or even on when a nuclear bomb might go off? Well, welcome to the world of prediction markets. These are platforms that basically turn future events into something you can gamble on. And while they're often used for stuff like elections, the war in Iran showed a much, much darker side to all of this. The whole controversy just exploded on March 9th. One market for betting on the timing of U.S. strikes had attracted over $500 million in bets. An analysis even suggested that suspected insiders, people who might have known something, made over $1 million right before the war started. And most disturbing of all, one platform actually had to take down a market that was letting people place bets on a nuclear detonation. Just let that sink in. And really, that's the big question this single day leaves us with. When war, technology, and finance are all tangled up this tightly, where do we draw the line? From a conflict in the Gulf, to the stock market, to an AI lab, all the way to a digital betting parlor, March 9th showed us that in this modern world, everything is connected, and the ripples of chaos can travel a lot further and a lot faster than any of us ever imagined.